how much fun is this for you? Because you've been part of this. You've been on the field. You know what it is to be a player. But now you're outside of it. You're amongst the common unwashed with us, watching this team do what they've done. And we'll get into the particulars of the games last night and previous to that. But just right now, you got 15 games left. Everything feels like a playoff game. Last night was a playoff game. The night before was a playoff. I mean, I'm on the edge of my seat. Every time they don't score, every time they do score, I'm cheering, I'm cursing. I'm so invested in every moment of these games. This, to me, is almost like a playoff game, and there's 15 more before you get to the actual playoffs.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm having a blast. You know, it's I keep saying, I've said this over and over, this road trip is going to be huge. I'm sure we're going to get to that. And as to, you know, it's going to be the make or break. We know that, especially going to Houston. And it's going to come down to that series. It really is. But, man, what a run, especially after they come back from that road trip. And I say this all the time, that you get to the end of August as a player, especially to some of these guys who this is the longest they've played into the summer, right? So, like, usually in the minor league system, you get done at the end of August. It's more of a 5-month season. And, yeah, you look back at your numbers, what you did well, did not so well, wrap it up, and then you're like, oh, next year I want to get to this level. Well, now all of a sudden you're in the big leagues. There's no other level. Oh, by the way, you've got this month of September to get through to keep up whatever pace you're on. And it can be daunting, right? So I said this, even Brian Wu, who's been the most consistent. You get to the end of August, and this team, you could see them on the road. They got to that point, and they were physically, mentally exhausted. You could tell. There was just a little bit of like, how are we going to keep this pace up? Or the expectation, the bar has been raised so high after that trade deadline from all of us. How do we keep this up? Then they come back, and, man, all of a sudden this jolt of energy and how much fun they are having. Man, they're having an absolute blast. Obviously, the walk-offs help, but a walk-off after 13, 14 innings, it wears you out. But they're just having a blast, man. You can tell. And I'm not down there today, but the last couple of days, you can just see there's just that extra little boost of energy once they got home. Good weather. They can see the finish line in their sights. They're still in arm's reach as they got home off that road trip. And it's a fun time of year, man. It really is. And, you know, even like Harry Ford, for example, obviously he had that walk-off RBI last night. But I sat down with him a couple days ago, and I said, dude, like, being a young player, getting your first call-up, getting kind of just thrown into the mix, I mean, how much fun is that? And he's like, man, this is amazing, man. Imagine having your first stint, your first go around the big leagues, having this experience. So they're having a good time, man. It's a blast, a lot of fun.
Yeah, he's going to be under the perception, hey, it must be like this every year.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
He's going to be spoiled.
But you know what's so crazy about that, though, is the fact that when players come up in this environment, well, there's that expectation of every, as opposed to when you come up in like a rebuild or you're like a young prospect and you're coming up and there's all this expectation in, you know, May and June, and you come up and like the team's not great, but you're trying to establish yourself as a player. That gets ingrained in you, as opposed to what he's coming in. So you want that, man. If Harry Ford or any of these young players are going to be a part of this, and by the way, like, think about it, right? Cal and Logan Gilbert, I'll throw him in there, even a George Kirby, they came up in the teeth of it too, and now they expect that every year. It just changes the core of players and what their expectations are, as opposed to, well, I'm in the big leagues, I want to hit 300, I want to hit 30 home runs, I want to get paid. Well, that's different. Now, all of a sudden, your expectations are completely different when you're part of something like this. So it's awesome.
Yeah, text line is there for you at 866-979-3776. Curious if people are feeling the way I am, the way Ryan is, where I'm just literally, it is like a playoff game, and I've got a knot in my stomach through this thing, and I am living and dying with every passing moment of the game and every opportunity squandered, every opportunity taken advantage of. It's just, I love it. It is so fun. It's tense, but here we are, 6 wins in a row, which right now represents the longest winning streak in baseball. The Mariners have it at 6 games in a row, and they sit tied atop the AL West for first place with the Houston Astros with 15 games left in the season, and in large part because of what we were just talking about with Harry Ford coming up with the walk-off sac fly in the 12th.
Peralta set. The pitch to Ford. Swung on, popped up. Is this deep enough? To right field. Lugo backs up. He makes the catch. Polanco tagging. Here comes the throw. Polanco steaming home. He slides. He's safe! As walks it off with a sacrifice fly, and for the second night in a row, it's extra inning magic. Mariners win 7-6. They are in first place with the Houston Astros.
Couple things on that, Ryan. First of all, I wasn't sure that was deep enough because that was not a deep fly ball. That was a fairly. I mean, you heard Gary call it a pop up.
Well, it was.
It's shallow,
especially
but
where he was sitting from. Yeah.
Yeah, good on Polanco. Just putting the head down and rolling. The other part of that, which I loved on the replay, is seeing Negron out there at third, running with him down the third base line. Did you see that? He's literally keeping pace. He had a bit of a head start, but he was running along all the way to home with Polanco.
Have you guys had a chance to ask him, or has anyone asked him? Has Lefko gone down and gotten the inside scoop what he was doing running?
Well,
with
I'm sorry. Some of us have to follow the rules when the clubhouse is open. I know you, old fancy TV guy, can just wander in there whenever, but the clubhouse isn't open yet, Ryan.
Everyone knows Lefko.
You would know that if you were here.
You don't even have to scan your pass. You just walk straight in. Have you not text messaged Negron, by the way, at 8 a.m. this morning, Lefko, and gotten the inside scoop? Let's go.
I'm not as popular as you are. When I get to your status and have like 18 sponsors, I can do that, but haven't achieved that level yet.
Yeah, they'll shoo him out of that clubhouse. He walks in there now. They'll go, what do you think you're doing? Get out of here.
I will report back in about 20 minutes. I'll go find him. Just for you.
I'm curious. Was that just pure excitement, or what was he trying to
I think it was excitement. I think I mean it was. Sure. I'm just judging from looking at the TV, but it was pretty funny to see him racing down the third base line, keeping pace with Polanco there. Still got some wheels, Negron. It was cool to see. But Harry Ford talking here, Ryan, about what he was thinking when he got up to the plate.
Just just do a job. Just there's bases loaded, no outs. Just get a ball to the right side, get a ball in the air. Get is it Polo at third? Get score. That was it.
He's a man of very few words. He's succinct and to the point. Yeah, hit a ball in the air.
By the way, I told you real quick on him. I sat down with him, and I've done this deep dive into this question about the trade deadline and keeping up with that and this whole bit. And this is, by the way, he's the next guest on my show. Just a little shameless plug there. But
I'll have to ask him what that's like.
Yeah, no, I've gotten into this giant, this huge question going on. He's just looking at me. He's like, "Sorry, what are you asking me?" I'm like, "What?" Anyway, but he did give a really good answer. Actually, I'll give him that. He gave a really good answer how to deal with all that stuff. But yeah, man, he's just living the dream right now, dude. He's just up there. He didn't even nothing in the cage, just out there. Just thought he was pinch running. By the way, apparently thought he was maybe going to pinch run or something. And by the way, the guy who's facing, I'm sure he's faced him a bunch down at Salt Lake, or maybe faced him once or twice, whatever. But he just came up hacking, and what a way to kick off your T-Mobile time here as a Mariner. Good.
I know, right? And that was pretty crazy to hear. He didn't take any cuts in the cage.
Yeah,
that was his first swing.
Yeah, it was. I don't know how much heads up he got. And by the way, too, I was thinking about that last night when he said that. How he just rolled in. Man, it's one of these ones where he knows what he's doing and all that, but he's only been here he's only been at T-Mobile, using the facilities for a couple of days. I remember for me, anytime I've gone somewhere new as a new job, even working for the Mariners or getting called up, you don't quite know your way around, A, and B, it's you don't, am I supposed to go in there when I'm in the big leagues, even though I do that in AA, AAA? But yeah, so it makes sense for sure.
Yeah. Hey, one guy that I don't think we've given enough credit to and attention to. We obviously spend a ton of time talking about Cal, talking about Julio, talking about the pitchers, talking about Randy, talking about Naylor, certainly. Jorge Polanco has been on a tear. And it's kind of flown under the radar. I mean, he's the guy that scored the winning run last night, obviously, but he's got a 9-game hit streak going. He's played in 10 games in the month of September. In those 10 games, Ryan, he's hitting .371 with a .415 on base, .714 slug, .1129 OPS. I mean, and he's come up in some big moments with base hits and getting on base at that clip at .415. He's a guy that we talked about him in the beginning of the year because his first month, April, he was on a tear, and then he went ice cold in May, and it's been, somewhere in between since. But man, he's kind of quietly, been absolutely rock solid and red hot, to say the very least.
Yeah, he's. I mean, he's been doing it for a while too. Like, I mean, I had a number a couple of days ago where it last 18 games, 362, 5 doubles, 6 home runs. And one other thing that stood out when I was digging into Polanco too, because I'm like, man, he's been so valuable. He's hitting 300 with 2 strike counts, and the strikeout rate in this like last couple of weeks is down around like 11%. So you mentioned when he went ice cold, man. It was an April where just. He was like hitting an MVP clip. It was insane how good he was in April. If you remember, if you're listening or you can text in, I'm just going to let you know, man, it was the best signing ever. Late signing from the Mariners, and it was like, wow, he's 100% healthy, even though he can't throw across the diamond or whatever it may be. But he couldn't hit right-handed, if you remember that. But you said he mentioned he went ice cold. He couldn't get the ball off the ground. Like, it was just straight ground balls all day long. He started pressing, everything else. And the way he's finishing now, man, what a signing from the Mariners. I know he's returning, but I got to say, last year, whether it be injuries, whether it be, you straight away look at Polanco and think, okay, this is a player that's in decline. He's on that last stretch in his career in regards to the dominant part of the Polanco, and now he's going to be kind of that, mediocre hitter. He's not going to be that line drive, gap-to-gap guy. And, man, the way he's finishing now with all the injuries and the lower half stuff he's had to work around, this is huge. And not to mention, man, when you have a lineup as inconsistent as it's been, I get it. But we talk about the top of the lineup all the time. And Cal has kind of hit, some big inconsistencies, Gino Suarez. But guess what? All of a sudden you got to deal with the Naylor. Then you got to deal with the Polanco as you head to the bottom of that lineup. Man, it is so tough to navigate. So this is huge. Hopefully he can keep this up in these next couple of weeks.
Yeah, I think it's a conditional mutual option next year, which I would imagine he's going to not exercise. This is his second best year statistically in the way of home runs. He hit 33 one year. I think he's up, what is he at, 24 right now. So he's having a resurgent year. I would imagine he's going to want to capitalize on his market value. So we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, it's worked out. This was not a move, by the way, that I was excited about when they brought him back based on who he was last year. And then I was like,
as a matter of fact, I was co-hosting with you. I remember, and you were talking about, no, I'm not, but you were like kind of shaking your head, shrugging your shoulders, bit of this, bit of that. And I said to you, I said, no, trust me, his April's going to be amazing, and then he's going to kill it. I know. I was kind of there with you. I'm not going to lie. I love Polanco, great dude, but I'm like, man, like I said, man, you felt like you and I kind of agreed. Is this at the beginning of the decline as a player?
Yeah.
Because of these injuries or whatever it may be. Is there value there in defense that he can give? Because, we're talking about third base. I'm like, that's your third base option? I get it, but, man, no, he's been huge, man. So, touche. Absolutely.
Hey, taking a look at what they did pitching last night, I'm really interested to get your take on Bryce Miller, because part of what he did was great. He got off to a great start, had velocity, looked like he had command. He looked like Bryce Miller, and then he coughs up the 4-run lead. He had a 4-0 lead and coughed it up. Velocity came down a bit, but ultimately you look at the line, 5 2/3, 6 hits, 4 runs, no walks, which was great, 11 strikeouts, 99 pitches, 2 home runs. I came a bit conflicted, came out of that game going, okay, I guess in some aspects he was really good, 11 Ks, but he went out there and coughed that lead up. He couldn't get you 6. I don't know. How do you view that performance last night?
What I'm seeing from Bryce Miller is kind of like this, like where you're layering on some of the good from the IL stint, right? So we've talked about it a bunch, about how I don't want to speak for you, but we have discussed the fact that we felt like he got rushed back a little bit when he just had that one sim game in Houston and straight back on the bump. And I wasn't a big fan of that. Well, he's had that time off. Well, he had extended time off to the point where it was going to take you a couple starts, kind of like with George Kirby, the first 2, and even Logan. But I think with Bryce Miller, what you're kind of seeing is like this layering effect, right? So going back to the last couple starts in Atlanta, he got back to being more, fastball dominant, where he was getting some extra ride on that ball, extra backspin, and extra velocity at the top of the zone. And everything came off of that. I'm like, yes, this is the best version of Bryce Miller. When he is fastball heavy, he's on the attack, and then everything else is kind of like is secondary to that, which it should be, as opposed to going 5 or 6 different pitches in every count. I'm not a huge fan of that from him. And then last night, you mentioned the strikeouts and the way he attacked. So I think so again, you layer on some of the swing and miss, which is starting to come back to the surface again for Bryce Miller, which is huge. So he's emptying the tank these last couple of innings, which I love. The last little bit, and I was paying attention to this, when he gave up those home runs, around that time, that was that second time through the lineup. I know he put the first two guys away in Trout. I think it was Neto the second time through. And like, okay, if he can get this second look to these hitters and come up with, I'm not going to say plan B, but make sure he can be a guy who can get that swing and miss second time through, because that's kind of like that last step, right, where you have those two options. And I was watching him, like, okay, he got those two outs, and then all of a sudden the swing started to get really good against him. So I think that last piece of the puzzle for Bryce, and I'm using this, I know there's not much time left, but I want him to empty the tank before the end of the year. But there was so much good to take out of yesterday, where I think he is on this kind of trajectory, as opposed to this where it's back and forth and it's inconsistent and he does this one week and then that next start. I think he's more of on this trajectory where he's figuring out and putting the pieces together. And with all that being said, he can wake up this morning, I guarantee he did, saying, yep, my stuff is back. My swing and miss ability is back. Boom. Now all of a sudden I feel really good when I'm pitched 60 and I'm going to carve through that 4th, 5th, and 6th and get deeper in the game. So I really like where he's at right now. And I honestly think, man, I think the next couple starts he's going to be really good.